The first duty of government is to protect our rights.
It's our job to maintain the proper role of government in what we were tasked to do.
If you really want to doge, this is how you doge. You don't vote for bad legislation that expands government. Thank you.
Now we're talking about taxpayer money, and we're talking about accountability. It is their money. This isn't a government program we're actually spending on. We're actually giving it back to the people of Idaho.
There's other options for making our ballots more secure, such as using watermarks or putting holograms on the ballots.
And I think that that's what we need to look at more, is trying to get back to what we used to be, where our churches and our families took care of each other instead of relying on the state.
I asked the question rhetorically, if we gave them another $1 billion, they wouldn't be happy. Well, we've given them $2 more billion, and it's not enough.
We need to start making Idaho first. We need to start making America first.
Other states like Texas and Florida have enacted similar laws to address illegal immigration, both locally and in their communities. And Idaho has the right to protect itself when the federal government has failed to do that.
COVID presented us with quite the enigma. We didn't really know what it was or what to do, but that is no excuse to violate the rights of the citizens of the state of Idaho.
Say vote no on this and let the teachers teach and quit bringing in coaches to teach the teachers to teach, and let's get education going again in Idaho.
I don't know what's coming after this current administration for the feds, and we need this law because our federal laws on immigration have failed.
Mr. President, I think it's incumbent upon us to allow parents to use their hard-earned dollars to provide what's best for their children.
If I was looking at a business and I was looking at these figures, there would be heads rolling because this is unsustainable.
My concern is that the resilience of Idahoans who believe in self-reliance and self-responsibility will be eroded.
We need to be protecting our First Amendment rights, not inventing ways to slowly chip away at them.
The First Amendment and our freedom of religion, freedom of speech are our first liberties. They are so important. We don't have the rest without them.
Yeah, watch it.
Well, good afternoon, good morning. It's still 11:30 in the southern part of Idaho and 10:30 up north. My name is Matt Edwards. Welcome to the program, everybody. It's great to have you here. I am at an undisclosed location in the Treasure Valley here as I spend the next couple of days in town at the Capitol. And last night, I had the very high privilege to go hang out with the High Desert Republican women. I hope I'm saying it right. The High Desert Republican women over in Marsing last night for one of their monthly meetings, and we got to speak a little bit about some door knocking, about being active, and so forth, about what we do at our organization, what this show is all about. And it was truly a great evening and a good time of fellowship with some great patriots, which is what it's all about, folks. There's plenty of big fancy dinners and events all across the state that you can attend and have a good time and hear from some great speakers. But when you're showing up to these monthly meetings, weekly meetings, whatever it is, and you are having a war room of sorts about what to do within your district or within your community, this is where the grassroots thrives. This is where the grassroots lives, and we need it all across the state. So I encourage you folks out there, if you've heard of a group that gets together regularly, that is tackling the issues that you care about, go show up to one of these meetings. So join it, pay the dues, the yearly dues, if they have them. It's absolutely worth it if you care about your state, if you care about your family, if you care about your community and this country, because we cannot, what is it? Join or die, right? We need to join together, or we will certainly die alone. And then there's the other one. if we're going to hang together or we'll hang alone. Either way, we're going to hang, right? So you might as well put up the good fight and go out there with your patriots. And one of the things that was asked last night during a Q&A session was, how do I follow bills? How do I know when are they showing up in a committee? How do I know when to do all these things? And there's just so many bills to keep track of. And believe me, I feel your pain as an organization that tries to cover all of the aspects, all of the bills, and see what's important, what's being pushed through, what's being stopped. It could be very daunting, even if you had a team of people looking at all of the issues. So my recommendation to the individual that asked the question and to everybody else in the room is find one issue, find two different issues, something that you can just focus on for that session. And then just follow that. Don't worry yourself. You can't worry about everything. I mean, just think about all of the things that go on in the world. If you worried about, your cortisol level will go through to the roof and you'll end up dead in a day. So you can't do that. You have to pick one issue, find some people with some common ground that you can work with on that issue, put everything else aside, and get to work. And that is exactly what Secure Idaho has been doing. They had an issue that they formed and fought together a couple of years ago with the Prop 1, the ranked choice voting that happened that was trying to get pushed through in 2024. And now they've moved on and they've picked a different issue, which is tackling and dealing with illegal immigration and the ramifications from it. Yesterday, we played you a lot of clips from the committee hearing that happened the day before, and one of the folks that's at the forefront of keeping people informed is Michael Angeletta of Secure Idaho, and he joins us now. Michael, it's good to see you. You're back. We've traded spaces. I'm back down south. You're back up north. And
did you see me waving at you?
Yes, right. Very good. But as I was just saying, you guys have done a great job of pivoting now that you've won. You're 1 for 1 on your issues that you're tackling now, and now you're taking on this second one. And this was a very important hearing with this E-Verify bill, House Bill 704, that happened in a committee just a couple of days ago, and it did pass out of committee 16-2 on a partisan vote. So it was very well done. I want to get your reaction from the committee. I have a clip I also want to share with you first. As well, but first I want to hear your reaction from what you saw in the room on that. Was it Tuesday or on the Monday that it was actually?
Yeah, I always set my expectations low. Just like Prop 1, we thought we'd maybe get 51%, so we thought we'd get by a squeaker. So we are more than ecstatic about the initial results coming out of that first committee. Couldn't be happier. Cautiously optimistic, as you know, that's the first hurdle out of 4.
Yeah, it is. And there was an exchange that happened with the lobbyist for the Dairymen's Association and Kyle Harris, Representative Kyle Harris, towards the end of the testimony period there. Let's show that clip here, and because I kind of want to shoehorn you into this discussion that they were having. Go ahead.
Harris. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Narabout. So while we're sitting in limbo waiting for the federal government to act, and arguably this bill doesn't have anything to do with immigration, it just has to do with enforcing laws in this country that we have that prevent you from hiring illegal immigrants. So while we're waiting in limbo for the federal government to do something, are we supposed to continue to allow people like the dairy industry to just flagrantly break the law?
Mr. Narabout.
Chairman Wheeler, Representative Harris. First, I'd like to correct the record that our dairymen do not flagrantly break the law. We complete I-9 forms just like every other employer, and we don't believe it should be on the employer to verify legal status of an individual in country. That should fall on the government, not an employer. Secondly, I would point towards, in the transcript of the interview I referred to with President Trump, he was bluntly asked the question, do you feel like ag workers and those in critical industries should remain in country, and have you asked your agencies to limit their enforcement? And he bluntly answered, yes, I have. So I would suggest we follow President Trump's lead, allow him the space to work on this, and allow there to be a federal fix come forward.
Okay, let's pause it here. We'll get to Kyle's second question after that. But the first thing here is that he said it's not their responsibility to verify immigration status. And my question then is why do we have employers having people fill out I-9 forms and collecting all various sorts of information?
Yeah. In fact, it is the law of the land that you are only supposed to hire authorized workers as an employer. So they, of course, are absolutely responsible for knowing whether or not they're hiring an authorized worker, full stop. And of course, the challenge is, and we didn't hear enough of it. And of course, I was caught into a 2-minute testimony. So I got to say maybe 1/10 of what I wanted to say. And I noticed there was a lot of debate about, well, don't we already verify today? And the reality is we use an I-9 paper form. Now you can just imagine the reality of this thing. So as an employer who doesn't really want to know too detailed whether or not this person's authorized, you get the paper, it's filled out, and then it goes in a drawer. There is no verification at all. And I would add one last comment to that exchange with Kyle Harris and the dairyman lobbyist. You have to wonder if 70% of your workforce is illegal, but in the same breath, you claim that none of our members participate in any illegal hiring activity. That really doesn't pass the common sense test. And I think that's what Kyle Harris was going for. You could sense the deep skepticism from Representative Harris about how those two conflicting statistics could possibly both be true.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, his final question here, let's take a look at that. You can see him chuckling as the exchange finished. Go ahead, guys.
This and allow there to be a federal fix come forward.
Follow up,
Representative Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So does the dairy, ag, any construction industry across the state in Idaho, but speaking to dairy specifically because that's who you represent, do they knowingly employ illegal immigrants in the state of Idaho?
Mr. Nearbow.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harris, no, we do not knowingly hire undocumented or unauthorized individuals in the state.
I mean, if they took an oath, I mean, that's the thing. They don't take an oath when you stand up and give public testimony here. But that, I mean, we had his, we don't have to show it, guys, but we have the clip of his father from a few years ago saying they know that about 70% of the dairy workforce would fail an I-9 audit, meaning they would fail saying who they said that they were.
Yeah, and I think the problem with I-9 is, I guess technically you could say, let's assume you're not necessarily trying to abide by the rules. So you collect an I-9, but you don't really look at it. You just put it in the drawer. So are you knowingly hiring somebody that's unauthorized? I guess technically you might be declaring this as willful ignorance, right?
Right.
So that's what's really going on the ground, actually. That's absolutely what's going on right now with the I-9s. And with E-Verify, you cannot do that anymore.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's what they're afraid of. Okay. So, and it's also laughable too, to see, sitting legislators who are supposed to represent Americans, Idahoans, especially in light of last night's state, what do they call it? The State of the Union address, where President Trump asked the congressional body, to stand if they believe that the first job of government is to protect American citizens and not illegal aliens. And the Democrats didn't stand up for that. And it kind of mirrors some of the questions and some of the excuses that we see from Republicans. We don't have the clip, but if you just go over to Representative Mickelson's X page, she's certainly defending, or she's certainly downplaying the effects of E-Verify and saying, look, there's really nothing we can do.
Ironically enough, I just video recorded a rebuttal to Representative Mickelson. You can go find that on X.
Excellent.
I think, to be fair, it's good to understand why some legislators who should, of course, want to enforce the law, why would they be so hesitant? Why would they be so reluctant to do such a common sense measure? And what we find is, and this is mostly coming from the lobby, if you are a legislator in an ag-heavy district and the lobby is telling you we're going to have a great recession collapse if we get E-Verify, you can understand how a legislator would be a little shaken by that, right? He wants the economy in his district to survive and thrive. So what we've been trying to do is educate those legislators, specifically in the ag-heavy districts. We've been giving them reports and studies and briefs that actually, when we look across the country at E-Verify, for example, Arizona, and that's the state that we're modeling our legislation off of, The dairy and ag and building industry is thriving today. It never collapsed. There was no Great Recession collapse at all. So we're trying to let those legislators know that they're okay. We can enforce the law, and your industry and your agricultural sector in your district are going to be A-okay. And I want to emphasize one last thing, because I know Representative Crane had asked me a question in testimony about the shock that this might create to the labor workforce. And I wanted to emphasize then and now that this is for new hires only moving forward. It is not retroactive. Now, some of us actually might not be happy with that. We want retroactive, but we have to be constitutional and realistic here. So by only focusing on new hires, you're mitigating that worst case shock scenario. This is for new hires going forward. I think it's an important clarification.
Sure. Yeah, good thing to clarify. Okay, so final thing, you also announced that the scorecard, because we now have votes, we have votes on the bill now, that your scorecard over at your website, secure.idaho.org, right?
IdahoImmigrationWatch.org.
I'm sorry, yes, Idaho Immigration Watch, IdahoImmigrationWatch.org. And the guys will furiously look for that now. Oh, there it is. And so this is your scorecard. And, I made a joke of this last time. Here we go, Idaho, another scorecard. But this is dealing with one specific issue and these bills that you're following. And so can you kind of walk us through how the scorecard works? Because I know when we looked at it, you had different point values for different things that happened throughout the process here. So just give us a quick overview. Maybe we can find somebody with a good grade or a bad grade and just kind of see what they look like in the essence here. There we go. Yeah, let's choose old Vito Barbieri there in the front there.
Okay.
Well, yeah, walk us through what this looks like.
You bet. So I understand the skepticism about another report card, and that skepticism is in fact healthy, right?
It is. And it's also important. I'm not denouncing it at all. I just this Idaho,
Yeah. But this is, of course, an accountability tool, and what I think makes this unique are a couple of things. The first is we're not just relying on a floor vote. A floor vote gives you a thin sliver of the true picture of what's really going on. So we're going to capture not just the floor activity, but the committee activity. Super critical. As you know, E-Verify didn't make it out of committee the last two sessions. So right away, we knew we have to give insight and visibility and accountability in all of those committee procedures and motions and substitute amendments that go on, because those are all ways to subtly kill a bill, right? So that's what we've done. We're scoring all of the committee actions related to the immigration reform, what we call package, including E-Verify. And so then what we do is we score each bill, just like, let's say, IFF does, right? And we have our own criteria based on Secure Idaho's mission and vision, Idaho sovereignty, family-friendly culture, so on and so forth. So we go down that list. It's about 60 criteria. Then we give it an impact score. Is it transformative or is it symbolic? Okay. And then what we do based on how it matches up with Secure Idaho's priorities, based on how it matches up with the actual impact, we then assign that a multiplier. So if it's not very important, there's no multiplier at all. If it's transformative, like E-Verify, you get a big multiplier. And what we do is we score every action of the legislator. So when a legislator makes a vote, if it's a symbolic legislation, but it's good, they'll get a point. If it's a vote and it's something transformative, they're going to get a multiplier of 4. And so when you click on each of those legislators, you'll see what's behind that letter grade. We want to show how the sausage is made. We want to show exactly what actions related to what bill give them the score. And there you go. You're going to see a perfect example there. And I'll leave one last thing, which is really cool. It's exciting to me because we're trying to capture that nuance. In the hearing for E-Verify, it wasn't just a simple do pass, don't pass vote. There was a substitute motion from a member who probably didn't want to see E-Verify succeed. And so we captured that vote. And we also captured the debate. If somebody's vigorously debating against a bill and then they vote for it for optics, that never happens, right? We capture that. And so you're going to see that in all the scores. So you'll see some folks, Wheeler, he voted the wrong way, unfortunately, on everything in that committee hearing. But if you go up, you'll see somebody like a Cheatham. If you go up just a little bit, and he gets a B, and that's because he He took some correct actions and some incorrect actions. And we also think Cheatham is salvageable ultimately when we get to the House floor. So that's the nuance we're trying to capture now. We're trying to be really fair and really accurate about all the actions and moves they're making all the way through to the floor vote.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for walking us through that. I'm sure the folks are going to get a kick out of seeing this whole process go through. I know that there's another E-Verify bill. Does that factor into any of these scorecards, or are you just focused on the bills that you are trying to get through?
It's here, and it's why primarily Senator Harris gets an F right now.
Gotcha.
He was the author and sponsor of, what some partisans might call the fake E-Verify bill, but it's certainly not the one that's going to change anything on the ground in Idaho. It's what we consider a political cover distraction bill. And so Harris gets rewarded an F for that.
Right.
For all rank and file, if they vote yes or no on it, it's pretty much going to be a neutral score for that one. But we are tracking it, and we're, let's say, focused on the real E-Verify bill right now, which is going to the floor this Thursday.
Fantastic. That's tomorrow, folks. So please head over to IdahoImmigrationWatch.org, where you can find out how to contact your legislators. Go to CitizensAlliance.org, look up who your legislators are, and tell them to vote yes on H704. Michael, where can people follow you and keep track?
Secure Idaho on X is the best place. I've got my own personal feed, but you get all the good stuff related to this legislation right now from Secure Idaho on X and Facebook.
Excellent. All right. Thanks again, Michael. We'll have you back soon.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. I hear that over in the Senate, Senator Ben Taves has presented a bill. Is there a chance we can listen to some of the debate? Is that still going? If it is, I'd love to hear debate on this. This is an interesting bill. It's Senate Bill, let's see, I have it here, Senate Bill 1285. And this deals with amending existing law to provide for equivalency between high school graduation and graduation from a homeschool. And so this...
Moved by Senator Tape, seconded by Senator Den Hartog, that the amendment to Section 2 be adopted.
They're in the amending order, so that's what they're doing right now. So they've taken this bill to the I guess in the Senate it's the House, in the Senate it's the 14th order, where they are making an amendment to Senate Bill 1285. So this isn't actually the vote for it, but they're going to amend the bill. And because currently, right now, folks, if you have basically like a homeschooled high school diploma, there's apparently the Occupational and Licensing Department is not recognizing it as valid. So there are folks out there in certain areas and industries that where they would require you to have a high school diploma. They are not allowing a homeschool version of that to be accepted. And so this bill would fix that gigantic loophole. And so we look forward to seeing this bill get through, and hopefully once it gets over to a vote, it heads over to the House, we'll hear from Senator Taves and the House sponsor more on that. So, all right, folks, why don't we do this? Let's take a short break. We'll come back. Raul Labrador was in JFAC today. We've got the clips for you for there, and we will be right back.
That's exactly what happened. You want to pull the tape? You can pull the tape because we now got video.
Idaho is the dirt under your fingernails after an honest day's work. Idaho is the hug around your neck when your daughter spells her first word. Idaho is the written word of the law, steadfast and impartial, guarding liberty for all. Idaho is the family rifle passed down, a legacy of protection and the right to stand firm. Idaho is the echo of your own voice, unshaken and free, standing tall among the world's silenced. Idaho is the home that's built to weather storms, not empty wallets. Idaho is the quiet trust between a patient and healer, unbroken and sacred. Idaho is the hymn carried by the Spirit, gathering neighbors together in faith and purpose. Idaho is the laughter around a campfire, a family's bond growing stronger with every word. Idaho is the pioneer's will, firm and clear. We govern ourselves, free and unbound. Idaho is what America was. Let's keep it that way. Ask your legislator to sign the Citizens Alliance of Idaho pledge to preserve our shared values. We ride together.
Well, you got to call 208-402-4915. That is the number. Leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on the air. That is how it works here, folks. 208-402-4915. And we'll play it on the air. So you can send us an email too, signal@citizensalliance.org. Okay, let's get into this Raul Labrador stuff, because Raul was, like I said, at JFAC today. And here's what's going on. The Attorney General's office is also not immune to some of these budget cuts that are going on. I mean, if we're cutting the budget across the board, across the state, except for education, can't dare touch education. We got to keep those teachers' unions and administrations happy. They're not, all the other offices aren't immune to it. So Raul Labrador was before JFAC this morning, the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee, talking a little bit about the wins and some of the things that his office has been doing to save money, to consolidate. And we thought it would be healthy for all of us to take a listen to Attorney General Labrador. So let's listen to this first clip for a little bit.
Move on to the civil litigation and solicitor generals. Many of you know in Idaho we have a unique opportunity that you guys give us every single day that you're in session. We have a great legislature willing to pass good conservative laws, but we sit in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. So that combination means that we have an uphill battle defending every law that is passed by this legislature. When I ran for this office, I promised that I would be aggressive in my defense of state laws, and we have been doing it with some great success. When Idaho gets sued over its laws, our Civil Litigation and Constitutional Defense Division handle those matters. The number of cases has increased over years. This division handles the cases in both state and federal trial courts. When the state cases are appealed to the Idaho Supreme Court, to the Ninth Circuit, or the United States Supreme Court, they require an entirely different level of expertise. Appellate advocacy is a specialized discipline, which is why I established the Office of Solicitor General to handle these matters. This team focuses exclusively on high-level appellate work. I created this team through internal reorganization without requesting any new funding or additional positions. To be clear, I created a whole new division with 4 fantastic attorneys without asking for any enhancements in my budget. Why was this necessary? When our laws are targeted by teams of lawyers, they come from big law firms. They come from San Francisco, from New York, from Washington, D.C., from Boise's largest law firm, from all over the country. Out-of-state attorneys that are competing against my attorneys are billing over $1,000 per hour for appeals and pay their first-year associate more than my office's most experienced attorneys. Even some of the nonprofits and local law firms involved in these cases pay much better than the state. Yet our attorneys are rivaling, competing with, and outperforming them every day on a state salary. The clearest example of this work is the Fairness in Women's Sports Act to protect women's athletics. We have aggressively defended it through the court system, and when the Ninth Circuit ruled against us, we petitioned the United States Supreme Court to hear the case, and they accepted. In January, we stood before the United States Supreme Court and forcefully advocated on behalf of the state. That is precisely what I have built our office to do. Of note, in the last 3 years that I've been Attorney General, my office has gone to the United States Supreme Court 4 times on important matters stemming from legislation passed by this body. Other than the typical death penalty appeals that were done in the past, to the best of my knowledge, the prior administration took cases to the U.S. Supreme Court approximately 4 times in 20 years that they were in office. One final point on litigation, and this is about money. I have also made it a priority to keep more litigation in-house rather than hiring private attorneys. The prior administration, on average, handle 9 risk cases. Risk cases are those cases where the state is potentially liable for money damages, and those usually go to private attorneys in the state of Idaho. On average, the Office of Attorney General was handling only 9. Private attorneys often handle these cases. In 2025 alone, we handled 26 of these cases, and we're already at 5 at this year, just, in 2 months. By doing this, we avoid paying approximately $185 per hour for private attorneys instead of the average salary of $51 per hour plus benefits. We're saving taxpayers a significant amount of money. And I have done that without asking for additional resources. I want to finish with the Consumer Protection Division. I also reform our Consumer Protection Division without asking for more resources. I already explained to you that our office recovered or settled $242 million for Idaho taxpayers in the last 3 years, which is 2.3 times our annual budget. But that's not all. This past year, I appointed a new director of consumer protection without asking for additional resources, and we have fundamentally changed how this division operates. Just like we did with ICAC, we eliminated a consumer complaint backlog that had been accumulating for years and restructured our intake process so we now respond to every complaint within 24 hours. Because of these changes, we recovered more money for Idahoans directly who have been harmed. In 2023, we recovered $176,000. In 2024, that dropped to $149,000. In 2025, we recovered $1.1 million for it. This is directly to consumers. We're also going after businesses violating Idaho's consumer protection laws and at a rate that is unprecedented. In 2023, we did 8 enforcement actions. In 2024, 17, and last year we did 49 enforcement actions. So we're doing a lot of work with the money that you're giving me. We've launched Report Idaho Scams. We've processed 2,174 complaints, and we've held 12 outreach events across the state teaching Idahoans how to protect themselves from scams. I'm very proud of all the things my attorneys and staff have been doing without asking for anything over a maintenance budget over the last few years. I want to be clear that I understand what you're going through. I understand your budget constraints, but I'm just requesting that you restore $980,000 ongoing to our FY27 maintenance and to our 26 budget that you took away so we can continue to do the great things that our office has been doing for the people of Idaho. With 92% coming from the general fund and 89% of that budget being salaries, this will only lead to pay decreases for my attorneys or the elimination of 12 permanent positions. We do not have contracts, overhead, or projects that we can cut to avoid staff reductions. I've already seen emails from some state agencies say, don't worry about it. Your salaries are not going to be cut. There's not going to be any layoffs. In my office, that will happen. We're already losing the compensation battle. Our attorneys could make more money in private practice. And we've been fortunate to hire some attorneys who have taken these pay cuts. Some large law firm attorneys are coming to our office to take these pay cuts. They couldn't afford to take more. By restoring $980,000, we can continue doing the work that you have asked us to do to defend our laws. And we can do it in a very fiscally conservative manner. Thank you for the opportunity to address these issues today, and I will stand for any questions.
Okay, so there it is. Attorney General Labrador with his litany of things that he's been doing in his office and asking to restore some funding and making his pitch for it. We'll see what JFAC does with that. I mean, it's up to them to decide whether or not to move forward that way and whether the body then goes ahead and votes for his budget that he's requesting. Some of the other things that we wanted to get to here because we found it fascinating was a presentation on the crimes against children. One of the things, let's show this graphic because he's going to talk about this. This is a cyber tip. This was the cyber tip hotline. Basically, if there is, Idaho has a crimes against children tip line. And for years, this was the backlog. 1,500, 2,000, anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000 tips that were backlogged and not followed up. And that's going back from January 23 up until just before January 24. That was the number of tips that they had backlogged. you're going to hear from him how much they've wiped out. And you can see on that graph there that they've completely wiped out the backlog and are now on top of it, which when it comes to protecting children, you love to see that. You love to see that. And I think there was just a report recently that comes out often about how many people, sadly, thankfully, but sadly that it has to happen, how many folks in Idaho are being arrested for crimes or alleged crimes against children. But let's listen to Attorney General Labrador talk a little bit more about that.
Our broader ICAC task force includes additional participating agencies statewide that we work closely with. See if I can do this right. Okay, yes. And together with our ICAC unit, they made 143 arrests in 2025, again reflecting an increase from 2022, 2023, and 2024. At the same time that we are doing more, as you can see on the slide, the volume of cyber tips we receive just keeps climbing. So we are actually receiving more tips at the same time that we're working on all of these cases. In 2024, we received 3,793, and in 2025, we received 6,117, the most in Idaho history. That is a 61% increase in tips in the state of Idaho. But as you can see, from 2023, the tips continue to increase, but our backlog remains at zero. So as before I became the Attorney General, the cyber tips were increasing and the backlog was increasing. Now it has been reduced to within 24 hours. We have been able to continue that. On our recommendation, the legislature also expanded the child sexual abuse material statute to cover AI-generated content. We have already used that law to prosecute offenders. And we also added an electronic storage detection canine named Badger that helps our investigators find child sexual abuse material that is hidden in the homes of these perpetrators. Some people have argued that that's the best Labrador in the office. So I'm providing numbers because this is a budget committee and we have to talk about the big picture. We have to talk about resources and our need for resources. But before I move on, I want you to know that what these numbers actually mean. In the last 3 years, we have saved at least 10 live victims. These are children who were actually being abused by the people who were sharing the videos and images online. Consider the infant in East Idaho sexually abused by a caretaker who recorded the abuse and shared the sexual abuse material with another man in Idaho. Both are now in prison. Think about the 10-year-old child who lived on the East Coast but was victimized over the internet by a man here in Idaho through extremely graphic and sexual conversations. This perpetrator is now in prison. Remember the infant, an 8-year-old in South Central Idaho, abused by a trusted adult who recorded the abuse and then shared the sexual abuse material with others. A child in the home learned from a presentation that he heard from our ICAC unit that our canines can smell electronic devices, including cameras, and told our investigator, I just don't want any more cameras in the house. The man who placed those cameras and sexually abused the 2 children is now in prison. The ICAC task force has arrested and prosecuted many perpetrators over the last 3 years who re-victimized sexual abuse survivors by watching the videos over and over again. We caught all of these criminals because we are able to review these tips within 24 hours instead of letting them sit for weeks or even months. When I came into office, I also changed how we work with county prosecutors. Under the former administration, it was a take it or leave it approach. When they had local prosecutors who were asking for assistance, not just in these kind of cases, but in any kind of case, they would either give up local total control of the case or the office wouldn't help them. That did not help Idahoans. I wanted our office to be a true partner to our counties, so I changed the policy. We now offer assistance without taking cases over or requiring counties to give up control. When the Leyte County prosecutor asked for help prosecuting Brian Koberger for killing 4 University of Idaho students, our top prosecutor and the chief of our criminal division spent countless hours assisting them while Leyte County remained in charge. And we didn't ask for any additional resources to do that. When Fremont and Madison County asked for help prosecuting Chad Daybell in a capital case, our top prosecutor joined them for the 2-month trial. And when a new Boise County prosecutor needed help in a sex crimes case involving multiple victims, we loaned him our most experienced prosecutor and our victim witness coordinator. In every instance, our office paid for our people's time and redistributed the work they left back in the office. Together, this new approach and our office's direct statutory authority have significantly expanded both the volume and scope of cases we're prosecuting. We continue to prosecute public corruption, insurance fraud, all the other kind of cases that we were doing before, but we have added ICAC cases and unemployment fraud to that list. The year before I took office, the special prosecutions units only filed 8 cases. In 2024, we filed 41 cases, and in 2025, we filed 101 cases.
Folks, powerful testimony there from Raul Labrador, and we also gotta smack Idaho Public Television on the hand there for keeping up that graph throughout most of his reporting on the cases that his office investigated in saving these children. Absolutely devastating news. But you know what, folks? This is the proper role of government. This is what government should be doing. Government should be protecting the innocent, protecting our children. When I'm sending my tax dollars to Boise, this is exactly what we need them to be doing. Not all this other garbage that's out there that you and I lament upon day after day. But this is the important stuff here. And just put another finer point on it. Representative Kyle Harris, lavishes some praise on AG Labrador's office and the work that they're doing there. But it begged the question, is it getting worse? Is crime getting worse, or are we just catching people better now? So let's listen to that clip.
Attorney General, is there questions? Representative Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney General Labrador, first off, thank you. You and your office do fantastic work for the state of Idaho. We're all excited that you're in that office. Nobody can complain about what you guys are doing. Personally, this year, your office has been fantastic in helping me with some legislative things and questions that I've had. So thank you again very much for the hard work you guys are doing. We all appreciate it. I wanted to talk to you about the ICAC a little bit.
Yeah.
And just kind of get your opinion on what we're seeing here. Again, you guys are doing fantastic work. Your response is incredible. The proof's in the pudding, right? So do you think we're seeing more crimes actually being committed, or are we actually just catching the crimes at a better rate now?
Do you mind if I have the expert talk about it? This is Jeff Nye, the chief of our criminal division.
If you would just state your name and title for the record.
Of course. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jeff Nye. I'm the chief of the criminal law division in the Idaho Attorney General's office. Mr. Chairman, Representative Harris, that's a complicated question, but I think I can safely answer both. Across the nation, we are seeing an increase in these types of crimes, primarily because access is becoming easier and easier to get to the content. We call it child sexual abuse material. You may have heard it referred to as child pornography. But in addition to that, we are more successful in finding the people who are creating, distributing, possessing that material in Idaho, which is why you've seen such a dramatic increase in the arrests. So yes, the cyber tips have continued to go up, but our number of arrests reflect that we're also just doing a better job.
Very good. Excellent news there once again. So as we move along here, we had more discussion this time on illegal immigration and working with the federal government and what the states can do to take a proactive approach to what happens when our jails are overfilled with illegal immigrants. This was Senator Phil Hart questioning Raul Labrador
about incarcerated illegal aliens in the state of Idaho. I understand there's about 200 to 220 that are incarcerated in our prisons, which would be costing the state of Idaho $6 to $7 million a year. I'm wondering if we could develop some sort of a program with the federal government where if we release these prisoners out of Idaho prisons, if we could release them to the federal government and they could be immediately deported and we could relieve our prison systems of $6 to $7 million a year in expenses.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hart, it's not a question I came prepared to talk about. I'm a former immigration lawyer, as you know, and my understanding, and it's been years since I've practiced immigration law, but my understanding is that there's generally a hold on every prisoner who is here illegally. And I believe, and this is where I'm a little bit unprepared, I believe it's a policy of the state right now to have them finish their sentence before they release them on that immigration hold to the whatever country of origin they're from. So I think it would require a change in your policies as a state. And each country is different, because one of the reasons I think that in the past we have require them to remain in prison here is, you could have a country where they could go, where the prison system may actually be harsher. It might be good to have them in prison. Other systems, they're just going to be released and they're not going to do any time. So that's a policy decision that you're going to have to look at. But you would have to change your policy in the state to allow them to be returned, because immigration is waiting for their sentence to be finished, so you hand them over on the immigration hold.
A follow-up? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we're the policymakers. Yes. The legislative branch is the policymakers. So I guess the follow-up question would be, can your office work with the legislature and maybe come up with a framework that we could put in place, that maybe in some countries we can do this, or for prisoners that are originating from some countries, we could do it, maybe other countries we can't. But our census in the Idaho prisons have gone up by 400, and of course we're struggling to pay for that. So I'm looking for a way for us to get our corrections budget down and to save money for the state of Idaho, and I think your office could probably help us do that.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Hart, we are more than happy to look at that. There's going to be some legal issues, some jurisdictional issues, but we can look at that question if you would like us to.
Okay, thank you.
That. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. A good example there of how the legislature can work with the AG's office, which, with AG Labrador in this office, it's proven to be one of the most important offices in Idaho. Something that has been, just listen to some of the statistics he talked about how many different cases have been argued and how many things they've had to fight for, versus the previous 20 years under the previous AG. It's a tremendous job that Labrador has done in that office, and we commend his entire team for it. And we look forward to another 4 years. He's going to be on the ballot in 26 this year, and we just need him to keep moving forward with that office. I want to go back a little bit to, though, the crimes against children that they were talking about. This is very important. There is an entire website that you can go to. This is the Idaho Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. And so there's a lot of great resources there for you as parents. And you can, we'll go back up. I'm reading through what right below the picture there's a few buttons there that can show people what they can take care of. Things for educators, things for organizations. There's news about arrests that they're doing, things that are happening across and ways. And the tip line, I imagine, is buried somewhere in there as well. And I really do encourage folks to especially parents, especially those who are around kids, who know kids, make sure that this is top of mind. Because with Attorney General Labrador's team's commitment to all of this, to protecting our children, this is a fantastic resource, and we can be rest assured that, watching that backlog of things that they had to clear through, that chart of tips that were backlogged. Those are tips, folks. 1,500 to 2,000 tips saying, hey, I think there's something going on. And maybe there wasn't. Maybe I would hope that 80% of these were false tips. But if even just 20%, even if just 10% of these were actual crimes happening that just went on and on and on because the office could not follow through, and now there's zero backlog, and they're able to address these things within 24 hours, is an actual miracle. Absolutely miracle. Okay. Let's move on to something a little bit. I mean, that is good news, but it's always a tough, rough thing to talk about. I mean, you heard, Attorney General Labrador break down during some of this testimony there. But let's move on to this morning in the Senate State Affairs Committee. Senator Brian Lenny is bringing forward an important bill that would get rid of another loophole in our election system. Let's take a look at his presentation.
22 is an election security bill. As we've heard in the print hearing and last year, this has been in this committee. This type of bill has been in the committee a few times. Currently, the voter affidavit is available for a registered Idaho voter who shows up to the polls without an ID for whatever reason. Right now, they can just get a voter affidavit and they sign the name and address, and then they're just given a ballot. There's no checks or balances, and that ballot gets thrown in the pile. And, it's not very secure in my opinion. There's no way to track down a fraudulent voter. Say they find out later down the road at the county clerk's office, hey, we got a fraudulent ballot. Well, there's no way to find that person because you can't prosecute a ghost, right? And there's also no way to tell what ballot they put in the pile. So, as I've said before, I would like to get rid of the voter affidavit, but the next step in that is just making the current affidavit stronger. So what this bill does is it adds to the affidavit that instead of just name and address and here's your ballot, this bill says name and address plus you have to provide either your driver's license number or your date of birth. And what it also does is requires the poll worker to then verify that information, call the county clerk, whatever they have to do, verify that, yes, name, address, district, driver's license. Once they verify it, then they hand them a ballot. So it is a huge step in the right direction for just, voter integrity and things like that. So any questions, I'll hang out up here for a minute.
Okay, Secretary Phil McGrain was also in the room and provided these remarks in support of this half measure as we move forward with trying to close this stupid loophole. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Chairman and committee members, and yes, Mr. Chairman, you're correct. This is my first time in both committees on both houses this week. Thank you for the time, and I just want to thank Senator Lenny for working with us on this. Obviously, this has kind of been a perennial topic, so you guys have seen bills over and over again. I think Senator Lenny's raised the issue for some time regarding the personal ID affidavit, and I will say in our conversations together, one of the things our offices have been concerned about is some of the litigation that we have faced on our voter ID laws. So we tightened our voter ID laws on my first year in office, heightening the standard. We still have one case that is navigating through the Ninth Circuit right now related to that. But the ID affidavit is part of what gives the judiciary some ability to handle those heightened requirements that we have. And so I hear about a lot of concerns in this. I think working together, we've come up with a process that addresses one of the main concerns that Senator Lenny has raised and others have, is just the idea that because we have secret ballots, once you put a ballot in the ballot box, there's no way to tie it to whoever signed the ID affidavit. What this does is really it puts the safeguards in front of the issuance of the ballot. And so exactly what you've already discussed, the poll workers would call the county clerk's office and verify this personal ID identifying information on the voter rolls. So all of the counties have access to the state voter files and all the information. So they just validate that information prior to issuing a ballot. I think your example, Senator Shippey, is a perfect example of how this would play out and work. And so we do think, I think Senator Lenny really laid it out very well in terms of this heightens it considerably, puts the safeguards in place, but still allows in those situations where somebody shows up, doesn't have an ID. And Senator Lenny mentioned it, but I'll just emphasize it too. Idaho requires that you do provide photo ID in order to register to vote. So you've already had to have shown ID at some point in the process. This is just now on the actual day of voting, adding this additional requirement. So I think in terms of just election integrity, this bill achieves a lot on that front. And just really, I think in the litigation space, this is important to us trying to strike that balance. I will note from the county clerks, we've already been talking about them, about the practical aspects of this. And the one thing is we do, out of the 1,000 precincts that we have in the state, there are a couple of precincts that definitely don't have cell service. And I was talking to Kathy Ackerman, she's the Idaho County Clerk, so she has the most rural part of the state. There are a few that may not have landlines, but our office will easily be able to work with her for those limited number of precincts that we need to come up with an alternative path to verify the voter information. But I think it's very easy for us to come up with a path to do that.
Questions for Secretary McGrain, Senator Taves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary McGrain, thank you for being here. I agree on the driver's license, that number. I think that's unique and not readily available. I'm really concerned about the date of birth. Can you explain how that would be useful at all? And then if you're at all open to amending it to remove the date of birth.
Secretary McGrain.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Taves, I think, when we talk, and I will say I'm spending a lot of time on this conversation about personal identifying information and what's considered private, date of birth typically is still considered not common enough that other people would necessarily know it. Your point is valid, whether it's driver's license, social security number, you can probably buy some of this information off the internet these days just because of that. But it would take a whole heightened level of somebody trying to commit fraud to do this. I agree very much with what Senator Lenny said too. The mere act of putting in the process, like delaying your voting experience to validate the information, I also think is a deterrent to any fraudsters in the process. My concern with removing date of birth is that's more likely something somebody's going to know and remember when they're filling out the ID affidavit. And I think just to emphasize, same thing Senator Lenny said, is we are making a big step here in terms of tightening this process up, but still allowing it to remain available. Personally, I think it should stay where it is because driver's license isn't as common. The other piece of data that we have is social security numbers. We could always talk about that piece as well. But I will say that there's a sense of sensitivity among voters about all this information too.
All right, well, there you have it, folks. There's some arguments on why this measure will still work out for those of you who do decide to show up without an ID to vote, which that always boggles the mind. Who doesn't walk around with a simple driver's license or a simple ID? I mean, that's just, but apparently some people do. It's not that many. There's only, I think, out of the entire last election, there were maybe, I would say, a few hundred or less than that. So, but this will hopefully strengthen that. So that's good to see. All right, folks, we're getting near towards the end of the program here. We just want to remind you to give us a call. Give us a call. 208-402-4915 is the voicemail line. Leave us your message there, and we'll play it live on the air. And I think that's really good. Sierra Clark says there's a big union bill coming today at 1:30 Mountain Time. That's in the House Human Resources and Human Commerce. Human Resources and Human Commerce. I will be testifying virtually. Good job, Sierra. That's what we need. Sierra is on top of it. On top of that. Yeah, be sure to check out the calendars. And again, like I said at the top of the show, folks, find that one or two issues that you're passionate about and just stick with it. Stick with it. You'll be surprised. Once you get through a couple sessions on just one issue and one topic, you'll find yourself adding in more as you go along. So that's really good. If you've missed any portion of this show, of course, you find us on YouTube. I think we just hit the 7,300 mark in terms of subscribers, which is pretty awesome. Also, you can listen at IdahoSignal.live. I'm still getting over whatever's ailing me. I think it was a much better show today than it was yesterday. But this is the place where you can go to listen to the show live. live streaming. It just loops over and over again. The fantastic service that we have provided for you. All right, folks, this is Matt Edwards, Idaho Signal. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you guys next time. Take care.
Bill, I think it puts a stake in the ground that says we have a sovereign right to protect what's ours.